So Super Rugby round 6 is all done and dusted. We ended up with a couple of high-scoring games and a couple less so, but all pretty entertaining in their own right. For the most part, the favourites had the rule of this round, but there was one result which kind of bucked the trend. So in the first match on Saturday, so the Sunwolves losing to the Chiefs at home, scoring 10 of their own but conceding 61 points. I mean, the Chiefs in this result got the result, well, maybe even more so than what they were expected to get, but realistically they would have been targeting a bonus point win, and they did it in spades. So lots of different try scorers, 2 tries for the Sunwolves, but really they were on the back foot for a lot of this match. So it was considered by a few to be a possible slip up, but yeah, it just never looked like it once the game got going. The Sunwolves, I mean, there were a few positives in this game, but realistically 5 losses on the trot. It's just not good, and they are, at the moment anyway, well behind all the other teams. Even the teams at the bottom end of the table look a cut above the Sunwolves so far. The Chiefs, like I said, came out of the blocks really fast, scored a lot of tries. They went out to a 28-point lead in 20 minutes. No team can give the Chiefs that kind of lead and expect to compete in the match, let alone the team at the bottom of the table. So, yeah, it was a really poor start from the Sunwolves, great start from the Chiefs, just came out flying. It looked for a while like it was going to be an 80 or 100 point. I mean, if you're scoring it faster than a point a minute, it's starting to get pretty embarrassing for the opposition. But after the first 20 minutes kind of finished, the game settled down a bit. So the Sunwolves actually finally got into the game, come about the 20-minute mark. And from 20 to 40, so until half-time, they actually won that period of the game 5-0. But I mean, when you're down by 28 points, it's kind of a drop in the ocean. But at least it settled down, and you have to wonder if it had started that way for them, if they'd not been on the back foot so much so early, could they have put doubts into the Chiefs' mind? I mean, probably not, but still, your heads just go down when you're so far behind. So, yeah, it's just a nightmare start, really. The Chiefs, for the most part in this game, looked really good. Damian McKenzie playing at 10, ran the ball well, distributed well, scored a couple of tries, kicked goals well. He's just looking the all-round package. It's hard to say, read too much into it anyway from a game against the Sunwolves because he wasn't really tested, I suppose. Triple T, who played 9 for the Chiefs, he looked good. Tyler Ardron, the Canadian guy, ran the ball well, although he probably should have passed a couple of times when he was making his line breaks. I did note that Damian McKenzie wasn't able to stop Tongan Godzilla Salmaki from scoring a try, but we won't hold that one against him, seeing as he got 2 of his own. I suppose if I could say anything is that the Chiefs were exposed out wide a few times by the Sunwolves, and the Sunwolves wingers looked pretty good in this game. Like I said, a few positives. That was probably one of them. For the Sunwolves, their set piece was really vulnerable, and it meant that when they did earn penalties, they were having to take it quickly because they couldn't trust their set piece to get the ball back. So it's harder to plan around, and Michael Leach kind of alluded to that at halftime, that they would have to kind of replan the way things were going because they weren't able to do anything at set piece time, which is so crucial. Although I say that, they did get a line-out win against the head, and they did even against the throw, sorry, and they did even get a tight head. So yeah, their wings were good. The captain, normal captain Nagare, the scrum half, when he came on for Tanaka, he actually looked a bit better. So he probably should start most games, and has been so far, but he maybe should start all of them. For the Sunwolves, again, some poor kicks. Tanaka's guilty of that as well. Some poor decision-making. Like Robbie Robinson, who's a fairly smallish back, at one point just ran straight at Nathan Harris and Brodie Retallick. And I know if you're if you're a back who's got a bit of gas, you light up with the idea of going through a couple of slow forwards. But the gap was not there at all. It wasn't there to begin with. It's not like it closed up. There was no gap. And he just got monstered and then turned over. You know, Retallick just jumped on the ball and turned it over because he's really good at that. So it was just stuff like that. No support on him. What was he thinking? I don't know. They were so far behind, it probably didn't matter. And they looked a bit tired. Maybe that trip back from South Africa kind of caught up with them. So, yeah, dominant win from the Chiefs. They spent 60 minutes pretty much just bossing this game around. Yeah, expected win. For them, I mean, they're going to have to face the Highlanders next week at home. So they need to pick things up, or at least maintain this level of performance, because I don't think we can read too much into the result. I mean, sure, scoring 60 points when other teams have gone there, and like the Brumbies didn't do that well, but still, the Highlanders are going to be a big challenge, and they'll need to bring their A game. Just because they scored 60 points against the Sunwolves doesn't give them a pass for anything next week. The Sunwolves are just a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team at the moment. Like, they performed well against the Lions last week, and then, man, got really walloped this week. So they have a bye, probably need to settle things down, maybe get some guys back from injury, work on their set piece, and hopefully just kind of start the next kind of, is it third probably by now of the season? Yeah, in a better place, because right now it's pretty bad. The next game between the Hurricanes and the Highlanders, All New Zealand Derby, it was not a high-scoring affair. It was an arm wrestle, and it was very even for most of the game, to be honest. Both teams looked good, and it was taking some pretty special moves or special decisions or whatever it was to break through, to get some points. For the most part, it was a pretty slick game, although I've noted that some of the lineouts were pretty poor. So it wasn't a perfect game by either team by any means. And interestingly, even though it was so tight and there were very few opportunities, when there were penalties, they weren't kicking them. It was like, oh, we just failed at getting a maul forward, and now we have a penalty, so why don't we just try another maul? I mean, the commentators even cottoned onto it. It was kind of like, sometimes you're allowed to kick 3. I know the mentality is, score tries, score tries, score tries. You're not going to win games in 3 points, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes it's good to get that reward for building pressure in the opposition's 22. So it was a strange one. I mean, the Hurricanes did kick 1 from like 50. They had heaps of opportunities easier, and then Geordie must have just been like, I can kick that. Geordie Barrett. So he kicked 1 from 50. So yeah, 29-12 to the Hurricanes. The first Hurricanes try was a bit of a strange one, kind of a grubber, got kicked through, but Beauden Barrett got a foot to it and managed to collect it and score a try. Naholo scored one, which was some pretty good footwork of his own. Another ball kicked through for him, and he managed to toe it on again. So these tries, for the most part, they were having to really work for them. Nothing was coming easy. I mean, Arso's one, for a moment, he was pretty much vertical with kind of face towards the ground, hand on the ball, feet in the air. It was thrilling stuff, even though the score wasn't all that high. Lamb's try was a bit controversial for some people because they still think it's his foot that was in touch. So Lamb scored 2. One of his tries, he was being tackled, trying to be put into touch, and there was a foot in touch, and it had a yellow logo on the shorts of the leg that was in touch, but the Highlanders logo is yellow for the brand. So it was definitely, the same coloured boots didn't help, a similar colour, but it was definitely a Highlanders boot, so it was a fair try for the Hurricanes. But yeah, the TMO actually got it wrong at first, because he said to the ref, reverse your on-field decision, and it's going to be oh, wait a minute. Okay, no, it's a try. So it was a tricky one just because of the colour kind of combos of the boots and the shorts and whatnot. But still, in the end, you can tell from the scoreline that the Hurricanes' pressure just started to pay off, kind of towards the last 10-15 minutes. They probably could have had another try. Ihaya West had a nice little break at the end, because he's really good at that with his acceleration. At the end of a game when everyone's tired, he's good at coming on and injecting some pace into the game. So they could have had another try, but it wasn't to be. So no bonus point for losing for the Highlanders, no winning bonus point for the Hurricanes. Both teams could have kind of realistically pushed for that, but it just ended up kind of being a middle of the ground win. So Highlanders will be pretty gutted. Hurricanes will be pretty happy and maybe a little disappointed they didn't get any more right at the end. So yeah, big result against the New Zealand team for the Hurricanes. They're now second in the New Zealand Conference, which is starting to really tighten up, except for the Blues, who are well at the bottom. For the Highlanders, it's a pretty tough loss to take, especially because they were in it for such a long time. But like I said, it was an arm wrestle, and just towards the end, you could see that the Highlanders kind of putting the pressure on. Hurricanes. Yeah, the New Zealand Conference is hard. So the Crusaders are on 15, Hurricanes are on 14, Chiefs and Highlanders on 13. It's pretty tight. The Blues are well at the bottom on 6 points. But yeah, so it's pretty harsh. The Highlanders dropped from 1st to 4th in the conference, but like I said, it's tight. So one win or one loss is going to make a huge difference. The Hurricanes travelled to Australia to play the Rebels, which now becomes a really interesting game because the Rebels are the high-flying team in the Aussie Conference, and the Hurricanes are in pretty good form themselves. So that's going to be a big test to see where both teams are at, especially the Rebels. And the Highlanders travel to Hamilton to play the Chiefs, who will be coming back from Japan. They'll want to get an away win, maybe take advantage of some tired legs in the Chiefs if you can include that travel. But yeah, it's not easy to win away from home, so we'll see how they do. The third game was also not hugely high scoring. Stormers got a win, a tight one in the end, 25-19 over the Reds. It was an interesting game in that the Stormers kind of, the same way that the Chiefs built a big lead early, as the Stormers just came out of the blocks for the most part dominant, and they were up 18-0 pretty early on. And it looked like that long trip that the Reds took to this game, so, you know, Argentina, Brazil, London, South Africa, it looked like it was going to be the downfall because they just didn't look in it for a while. They didn't have any ball for ages. 18-0, it looked like the Storm was really going to run away with it. But kind of the last 10 minutes of the first half and the first 10 minutes of the second half, the Reds, you know, managed to even it up. They finally got some ball. It was 18-14. So, you know, 18 unanswered points for the Stormers, 14 unanswered points from the Reds. So, to and fro kind of game. Stormers kind of took a lead. It was comfortable, 25-14 for ages. It was like from the 50-something minute right up and towards the end of the game. And the Stormers were just one try away from really putting the Reds to bed, but they just couldn't do it. Like, they had their foot there, but just wouldn't put it down. So, they'll be pretty disappointed with that because they had a lot of chances, and the Reds, to their credit, never gave up. But the Stormers, man, they need to, against other teams, this will come back to haunt them. They still got away with it in this game. The Reds scored a pretty magic, Dalgunu scored a pretty magic coast-to-coast try right in like the 78th or something minute, and, you know, put it within touching distance for the Reds. The Reds managed to get a restart and got a penalty, kicked it long, so that they probably had a maul, probably 10 metres out from the Stormers' goal line. Stormers managed to hold them out. But realistically, the Stormers shouldn't have been in that position. They should have had the game kind of in the bag before that. But they did hold out, so it's a solid win at home for them, but not spectacular. Raymond Rule had a pretty good game, and Willemse is just looking class for a 19-year-old guy. He's running the show really well at the Stormers. He hopefully is going to be in South African rugby for a long time and will go on to do good things because he certainly is really good at his young age. For the Reds, they'll be pretty disappointed with the way their scrum went. It's been one of their main weapons in Super Rugby so far. They've gotten a lot of penalties from their good work at scrum time. You know, Taniela Tupo's done a lot of work, but they just kept getting penalised. And it's an interesting one in that, you know, different refs see different things, but this ref just kept penalising the Reds for like early engagements, kind of leaning in, feet too far back. So maybe other refs don't give that, but this ref was definitely not having any of it. And yeah, Taniela Tupo got subbed after 52 minutes, which for him recently is really early. Like for a prop, you know, that's normal, but for him, he's usually been going 60, 70 minutes. So yeah, Brad Thorne was just like, be done with it. If we're going to get penalised, we'll switch the front row up. because it wasn't doing any better. For the Stormers, their lineup was better than it has been. Their lineup's been pretty poor so far, but it was a lot more solid this game. So yeah, I mean, this makes the Stormers kind of clear in second for the South African Conference. They're still behind the Lions by a fair bit, but they put some distance between them and the Sharks. So yeah, good work so far. They're making up for that bad tour of Australia and New Zealand with some good home results. So the Reds are a team that could have gone on and beaten them, but they managed to hold on to it and get the result. But they really need to put teams away in that position in future. For the Reds, they now get a well-earned rest. They go on the bye after such a long trip, so they will rest up and no doubt get better. Well-earned bonus point, man. Like, this just shows you what to do in terms of like not giving up. Even though they were under the cosh for a fair bit, they didn't put their heads down. They continued to fight, and they ended up getting a losing bonus point, which you never know at the end of the season could be pretty important for them. Right. Oh, I should say the Stormers have got the Bulls away next week, so they'll probably want to win that one as well, because Bulls are coming back from a pretty hard tour themselves, so it's a good time to probably be playing them. The last game of the round, and this was kind of a mix-up in terms of the scheduling, because it wasn't shown in New Zealand live at all, which never happens. Super Rugby games are always on live, no matter who's playing, what time of the day or night. But I'm assuming it got rescheduled because it was only showed delayed. So I only saw a Facebook notification from the Lions. Their Facebook page was like, "Oh, Mahuza's just scored a try," and I was like, "What? Has the game even started?" So because I wanted to watch it, I did my whole thing of closing myself off from the world until it was on replay. So I watched it, having been spoiled a little bit, which was disappointing, but still, I got to watch it, so I can't complain too much. Big upset with the Jaguares taking the Lions down 49-35. A bit of a to and fro game again. Not so much in the lead, but the Jaguares took an early try. The Lions came back into it, took the lead themselves. Then the Jaguares took the lead back. And then they just pulled away. And you're wondering what was going to happen with the Lions. But the Jaguares have been guilty of letting teams back into it before, usually in the last 10 minutes, but it happened a lot earlier this time. The Lions stepped it up, got within touching distance, and then the Jaguares would just score. And they get back within touching distance, and then they just scored. So it ended up being a fairly decent looking win for the Jaguares. Definitely teams have figured out how to defend against the Lions for sure. That rush defense seems to be causing problems. I think the Lions probably need to practice a bit more kicking in that situation, because if teams are rushing up, it means there's space somewhere else, and it's usually just behind the guys who are rushing. So you need to kick it through or kick it long or whatever. But they need to change something up, because teams are causing them problems with it. There needs to be a plan B for sure. For the Jaguares, man, were their hands a lot better than last week. And that's not going to be hard, because last week their hands were terrible. But much improved this week. They were able to build phases. They were able to build pressure. Much improved performance for them. The coach would be not pulling out what little hair he has left so much after that. Marks came on as a substitute in this game, and he made a visible difference when he came on. I mean, I like Robbie Kutzer as a hooker. I think he's a good player, but Marks is just world class, and he's going to make that difference when he comes on. Maybe ask the question whether he should have started or not, whether it would have made a difference. I don't know. They had a pretty dominant scrum in the whole game kind of anyway. But, I mean, he's still got 2 tries. He's got a turnover when he was on for not long. So he is a difference maker, but still not enough. The Jaguares had a number of good performers, and this guy is Kura. He's not that big for a second 5 or inside centre, but he kind of summoned his inner Nani Lamapi for a moment, because he just busted off a few guys and showed a bit of toe to score a try when the Lions were really coming back into it. So that was one of those moments where the Lions were just about to push, momentum-wise, to push the Jaguares back. And then, yeah, the Jaguares took that opportunity, so just pulled it out of reach again. Yeah, there were some silly decisions in this match from kind of both teams. The Jaguares did some silly penalties, like guys in front of the kicker, which led to the Lions getting a try pretty much straight away. And the Lions, when they were really chasing the game, like silly penalty at the breakdown, and then later on they had a short arm, so a free kick at the scrum, and they decided to call for another scrum, and it was already at like 75 minutes and they were 14 points behind. It's like, you haven't got time for this. I know they probably wanted to get a penalty out of it or set something up, but scrums take ages. It's one of the banes of kind of watching rugby, but yeah, and then they did earn a penalty from the scrum, and then they just tapped it. It's like, you finally got a long arm, you just tapped it. You could have tapped it from the short arm, but yeah, it's just some bit of lack of leadership there, I think. A bit of silliness trying to rush things. Yeah, the Jaguares needed the win, and they got it. It means their season's not a real total write-off. I mean, they're going to have to go on a big run to get themselves back into it, but if they'd lost this game, it would have been game over for their season. For the Lions, their drought in Argentina goes on. So pretty disappointing for them, seeing as they sent a relatively strong team. And back to South Africa now to play the Crusaders. So there's no let up for the Lions. They're going to need to sort some things out. So we'll see if they're able to do that, kind of work on a bit of plan B stuff, because you can pretty much guarantee the Crusaders will be rushing up at them in that game next week. Jaguares get a bye. So probably well earned for them because they've been playing since week 1. But yeah, interesting round of rugby. I should mention that at one point, because you know the Crusaders, at least in New Zealand, I won't say they're a team that everybody loves to hate, but they've just won it so much in the past that sometimes non-Crusaders fans get a bit like, oh man, the damn Crusaders again. In this game, the Hurricanes versus the Highlanders, there was one point where the commentator was like, and then there's a turnover from the Crusaders, and it was like, man, you're not even playing and you guys are still involved in this game. But just thought that was kind of funny, calling the Crusaders. Not to say that we don't all make slips of the tongue sometimes. I do it a fair bit on here, calling things the wrong way around, but you know, it happens. It was just funny. What did you guys think of the round? Especially this result. How do you think the Lions are going to go next week? Stormers to beat the Bulls, you reckon? We'll see what happens. But yeah, Highlanders no longer undefeated. I'm dying to go and do these power rankings now that we've got all the results in. So we will see how things look. Sunwolves, yeah, their position is not going to change, but there's probably going to be a few movements elsewhere. Right. Yeah, guys, leave us your comments, see what you thought of the round, and yeah, I'll talk to you again for the next one.